Welcome to the Jazz Notes podcast. I'm your host, Ben Anderson.
I'm Chandler Holt.
We are recording this on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. I can't believe it's May.
It's crazy.
This has gone really quickly, as much as sometimes you're like, oh, the All-Star break, and then Jazz are going to try and lose 16 out of 17, which they did successfully. But anyways, hey, we are doing this on video for the first time. Very cool. So if you are a dedicated listener through the podcast app, which has been the only way to listen to it unless you're going to KSLSports.com, this is now on video and has been uploaded to YouTube. So if you want to show your girlfriend how cool you are for listening to Jazz Notes podcast episodes, sit down with her and make her watch this whole episode. She's going to love that. But shout out to everyone who listens, the men and the women. As always, find us on Twitter at Ben's Hoops, at C Holt Sports. You can find us at Blue Sky there as well, and read us at KSLSports.com. Quickly, we have teased what we're going to be doing on draft night.
Yes.
Everything we said you can disregard because a wrench got thrown into our coverage, which is I'm going to be on remote at a JCW's location, I believe, for lottery night. That's a week from tonight, the 12th of May. So I don't know exactly what we're going to do. We are not going to record a podcast that day.
No.
I don't think it makes sense to record a speculation podcast at noon that doesn't mean anything as of 5:30.
Yes.
So we are going to record Tuesday at noon. So a week and a day from today, we're going to record with a more digestible recap of what just happened.
Yes.
The night before. I would love to do it that night. I don't think it makes sense.
No.
I don't think we're going to be able to get that together. So anyways, we will have all the coverage for you live on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I will be on the entire broadcast. If the Jazz win, I suspect we'll go several hours. If the Jazz fall to 5, we'll go 4 minutes, and I'm going to order some burgers, and I'm going to hit the road. No, we'll obviously break it down for you. So anyways, that's the plan for next week. So do not expect a Jazz Notes podcast on Monday. There will not be one next week, but there will be one on Tuesday, and then we can record it again.
Yes.
Throw it up on YouTube. All right. As always, we like to go through our weekly news, little updates here and there. We are going to recap sophomore players for the Utah Jazz, the season they had. We're going to do an individual prospect breakdown. We did Cooper Flagg 2 weeks ago. We did Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper last week. We're going to do VJ Edgecomb this week. And then hopefully that's it. Yeah. Hopefully the Jazz don't fall to 5 and we have to look at a guy named Trey Johnson and Con Knippel and all these other guys more. But very realistic there. That's a chance. 48% chance that happens. So we will do all of that, and then we'll finish the show with your mailbag, which was loaded.
Big one today.
Busy mailbag.
Yeah. So starting with weekly news, we haven't had weekly news in forever, it feels like. Yeah. But today, the Jazz announced that they are extending Will Hardy, I believe, through the 2031 season.
Surprising.
Yeah.
He was already under contract for 2 more years, and they basically tacked on an additional 4 years. My initial thought was twofold. Okay. Conspiracy theory, the San Antonio Spurs reached out to him when Greg Popovich hung it up, and he said, hey, guys, there's actually kind of teams who are interested in me. Just want you to know that. It's always good to be headhunted. I have no proof of that by any means. That's just kind of, you look at the timing of, this is a little bit suspicious. Not suspicious, but weird. This isn't when a lot of guys are getting extensions, and not a lot of guys get extensions after having the worst record in the NBA, but it's good to be Will Hardy. And my other thought really is they just said, you did what we asked. We're a week out from the lottery. We wanted to have the worst record in the NBA. You did it. What else can we ask of you? And now, because you're under contract for 6 years from today and 4 years beyond your original contract, you can buy in. You can feel confident that if they have to tank again next year to get a top draft pick or whatever moves they make in the summer, you're on board. This is done with you in mind, not the theory, which we have talked about, is do you make Will Hardy do all the hard work of all the losing because he's 34 and now he's 36 or whatever he is, and then you fire him and you go and get an experienced coach who knows how to win as soon as they draft AJ DiBonsa and Cooper Flagg or whoever they end up with over the next 2 years, and then Will, hits the bricks and he's out on his own? That's not really fair to do for a coach, but NBA coaching is not fair.
Yes. And he actually spoke about that in his press conference today, talking about Greg Popovich. He said he was a mentor to me in a lot of ways, very prominent figure in my adult life. He was in San Antonio from 22 to 33.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. And then also he touched on growing the young players and then the eventual goal of hanging a banner at Delta Center, all in his press conference today. Anything else with Will Hardy?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one more piece of weekly news, kind of cool for another.
Well, by the way, I think Will Hardy's a good coach.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not I don't know how good. He's never coached in the playoffs. Is he Ty Lue? Is he Quinn Snyder? Some guys are really good. Some guys aren't very good.
Yeah.
Ime Udoka's a good coach, just lost in the first round. So we will see. He's got to get there, and he's going to have a learning curve there.
Yeah.
Not a lot of guys get into the playoffs and win early on. Some guys do, Ty Lue, et cetera, but it takes a while.
Yeah, absolutely. As you saw with the Rockets, like they were the number 2 seed, but they go against a more experienced team. Ime Udoka, of course, has that playoff experience, but it takes trial and error when you get to that stage. And then one more piece of weekly news, also with someone in the Jazz front office. It was announced that Dwayne Wade is one of 4 new additions to NBA on Prime with their coverage starting next season.
NBC, Amazon, ESPN have the NBA coverage, right?
Yep.
And then, of course, NBA TV, et cetera. So Amazon's spent some money putting some talent together. They've got Dirk, which is cool. I love Dirk.
Yes.
They've got Steve Nash, so those two together, Dirty Dirk and Nasty Nash, getting back together. It's pretty funny. I bet those guys are going to have good chemistry. And then, D. Wade is going to fill in on some stuff, too. So he was like the top of their broadcast, their announcement. So good for Dwayne. Yeah. Busy day. He was on SNL on Saturday. He showed up with Sabrina Carpenter and the other host. I'd have to pull up her name. She's, she was in some one of those NBC shows.
Okay,
I should know. We work for NBC. But, and he sang a song. It was funny. He was good. They sung a song about being short, which is funny because he's 6'4", but he's short for the NBA.
True.
And now he's going to the Met Gala tonight. So, all right, let's talk about. We've done the weekly news. Should we talk about the sophomores?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So sophomore players, as we mentioned, we started by talking about two-way players, non-guaranteed players.
Yep.
Last week we did the veterans. Now we're going to talk about the sophomores. So we have Keontae George, Bryce Sensabaugh, and Taylor Hendricks. We can start with Taylor Hendricks. Got injured in the third game of the season. So didn't get to see much of him, but he made a few appearances on Jazz broadcast throughout the season. He beefed up a lot.
Huge.
Yeah. And apparently he's going to go down about 10 pounds for his playing weight for next year. But I believe the most recent update for him was that he's not going to be playing in summer league, but he's returning to on-court activities somewhat soon.
Yeah, it sounds like he said he'd be 100% to be back on the court, but not to play at 100%.
Yeah.
I talked to him. He told me he's dunked a couple of times, which he was excited about, and he said that felt good.
Yeah.
He only played 3 games. It was really 2.5 games because he got hurt so early in that third game. Loved his rebounding. He was at 5 rebounds a game. He was at 1.3 blocks. Like some of that stuff that was like, oh, big guy Taylor Hendricks is here.
Yeah.
The big questions about Taylor, was he going to be a 3-4 or a 4-5 in the NBA? I think 4-5.
Okay.
I just think his handle's not there.
Yeah.
So I actually like his passing, but his passing is good near the rim, which is like a good 4-5 passer, not a good 3-4 passer. And then the blocks and the rebounds I thought were really impressive. And then he's going to be a stationary three-point shooter.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be most of his role.
Absolutely.
And then maybe some pick-and-roll stuff. Which, you know what? If I look, and we don't need to do this now, but like I kind of look at the Jazz young player rankings, and maybe it's just the mystery of we didn't see him all year, and we saw more of the warts of some of the other young players. Still a ton of excitement about him. And rightfully so. Great size, shoots, plays defense. Like the Jazz need all of those things really badly.
Yeah. If you do the young player core and add Walker Kessler to that, I would still have him as top 3 in terms of like.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So
that's rightfully so. He's a top 10 pick in a good draft.
Yes.
It was a very good draft. And, there was a week leading up to that draft. Like there was talk he could go 5 or 6.
Yes.
So there was a good draft. So there were a lot of good players between 4 and 10, and he fell to 10.
Now, do you want to do Keontae or Bryce next?
We can do Keontae. Keontae's probably the most interesting here.
Yeah.
I have said, I think of all the young players, if the Jazz decide to move on, but we should talk about the concept of moving on or not moving on from players. I think Keontae's probably the most likely to move on as far as based on he has trade value. Like, what is Cody Williams' trade value right now? It's exactly. Like nothing, so you might as well hold on to him. Keontae is either the second or third leading scorer from his draft class, so there's value there. There's still some untapped potential. He's kind of figured out his role as a 6-man or at least bench player who can carry an offense for stretches. The 3-point and field goal percentages were not good enough this year.
No, absolutely not. He finished at 16.8 points a game, 5.6 assists, shot 39.1% from the floor, ironically the exact same as his rookie year.
Yep.
And then a little bit better from 3, but still down at 34.3%. Not really what you want from someone who that's the majority of his game, perimeter scoring.
And even when he moved to the bench, I'll see if I can get his game logs to pull up here quickly. Just like he had some moments where it looked good, and then some moments where it just like was a little too much for him.
Yep.
He's just got to figure out some of his mechanics shooting the ball that Will Hardy talked about a lot. I don't want to get too much into the shot doctor aspect because I'm not that. So I don't want to pretend that I am. But there's just it seems like there were things the Jazz were asking him to do, and he didn't always do them.
Yes.
That's kind of my read on Keontae George, and he gets saddled with some things that he's probably not capable of doing it, like carrying a huge offensive load. I do love that the passing numbers went up. 5.6 is a good number. I actually think he's a pretty good rebounder for a guard, but his whole thing is going to be, I think, based on being able to shoot the ball. And he doesn't shoot the ball well enough. It's a real problem. He's a bad defensive player. He's one of the worst defensive players. So that's a hard thing for him. Even when he moved to the bench in 35 games, he shot 39% from the floor and 33% from three. It's just like, it's who he is.
Yeah.
And he didn't shoot well at Baylor. He just needs to be 10% better everywhere. He needs to be 10% better as a shooter and get up to, I mean, that's a lot. But like, I mean 10%, not add 10 percentage points. I mean, add 10% of 39%. Add 3.9%, 4%, you're up at 43 as a shooter. Like, that's okay for a smaller guard. Add 10% to your three-point shooting, you go from 33 or 34 to 37. It's like, okay, now you're really usable. It's important to remember he's only going into his third year.
Yes.
Like, I think that is possible. He could add it. He just has not added it yet. And he's not a defensive playmaker. Like, you can make up for being a bad defensive player by getting steals or getting the occasional block, and he just doesn't do that enough either.
No. And like you said, he was asked to do a lot this year, like on the offensive end, and also he had that new role eventually coming off the bench. I think he responded to that well, but it's just the things that he does well are sometimes overshadowed by the things that he doesn't do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So...
Right. If he was like just a solid defensive player, I think you could live with some of these warts.
Yeah.
Like, Davion Mitchell can't score at all, is a good defensive player, so he has value as a player in a playoff rotation, even if it's just borderline, but like the Heat were using him.
Yeah.
Keontae has not figured that out yet. So that's the next step for him if he wants to stick in the NBA. His scoring will give him another opportunity. If it's at Utah, I don't know. And then let's get to Bryce Sensabaugh.
Yes. So I think both of us, not that we had a lot of options because the Jazz had one of the most starting lineups in the entire NBA, but both of us had Bryce as our sixth man of the year for the Jazz. This year, 10.9 points, 3 rebounds. He shot 45.9, we'll round up for you, 46% from the floor, and 42.2% from three, a true sniper.
Yeah, absolutely elite shooting for Bryce Sensabaugh. So that's cool. That's a great sign for the Jazz. That's how he sticks in the NBA, and we've said it on this podcast before, but his end of season press conference when he's like, outside of the top 5 players in the NBA, if I tell you a name of an NBA player, you can tell me what they do at their best, and I've got to figure out what that is, and I know what it is. It's shooting.
Yes.
So I'm going to stick to that. That's exactly right. That's the perfect approach for Bryce. So he sticks to shooting, and over the second half of the season, he really did not miss, but he did not miss hardly at all, period. Over 40% from the three-point line. Still like his body. He's got to get thinner. He's got to get stronger. One of the interesting things I thought Will Hardy said was if he commits to his body, which he's not like sloppy, it's like he has a bad body by any means, but like if he gets to that elite conditioning, elite shape, it probably fixes all of his other issues. It fixes his defensive problems. Like, it allows him to do other things because he's got some physical advantages now because he is huge. He's a big body dude. Like, he's pretty tall, not crazy tall, but he's really strong. He knows how to use his body really well. So that could become a real advantage. And you like every shooting statistic.
Yes.
47% from the floor, 47% from the three-point line. I'm talking about his last 27 games post All-Star break. 87% from the free throw line. It's like, it's all the things.
Yeah.
It's all the things you really like to see. Got to cut down on the turnovers.
Yes.
Like, Bryce, stop throwing the ball around. It's crazy. For a shooter, you turn the ball over way too much.
Not to dog on Keontae, but something I really liked about Bryce, which is the opposite of him, is that I feel like the Jazz asked him or pointed out these things to him that he could work on, and he did a lot of that this year. Like, I feel like in his rookie season, it was a lot of taking unnecessary dribbles and taking spin jumpers and step backs and all this stuff, and he really cut it back to mostly catch and shoot threes, and that's why he jumped from 29.6 to 42% from three this year.
An elite jump.
Yeah.
A truly elite jump. But the nice thing about him, again, and we talked about Keontae, like, he wasn't a good shooter at Baylor either. Bryce was an elite shooter at Ohio State.
Yeah.
And an okay shooter his first year. And I remember specifically because I flagged it. Danny Ainge said, we believe Bryce is a better shooter than he showed this year. And he came out and he's
proved it.
Maybe the best shooter from his class.
Yeah.
He's got a chance to be that type of player. So you need shooters. You look at like what Buddy Hield did yesterday for the Warriors in their Game 7. It's like having guys who just drain threes and can take 10 or 13, 14 and make 9. Like, Bryce is a real threat to make 9 threes in a game next year. So I strongly suspect Bryce is back next year. I think they really like him.
All right. Anything else for any of the sophomores?
Is that it? Was there not any weird two-way guys? I mean, I'm sure we've talked about everybody else at that point, right?
Yeah.
There's no other random second-year players on the team?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Do you want to take a break and talk about VJ and then get to the mailbag? We have like 1,000 mailbag questions.
I was about to say we could do VJ right now if you want.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. So yeah, as Ben mentioned to start the show, 2 weeks ago we did Cooper flagging the Duke guys. Last week we did the Rutgers guys. Now it's time for VJ, who a lot of mocks have him in the 4 to 6 range. A couple weeks ago it was like, seemed like there was more of a lock for the order, and VJ slotted in at 4 every time. But now you see like Trey Johnson, some of these other names. It fluctuates after 3 for the most part. But VJ in a lot of ways was awesome this year.
He's interesting. Listed as 6'5". It's a huge number coming out of the combine, which starts on Sunday, by the way.
Yes.
This Sunday, a day before the draft lottery. His measurements are maybe the ones I'm looking at most closely for all these players. Listed at 6'5", 180 pounds, which is light, but he's sculpted. Shooting guard, kind of small forward wing. Probably not big as a wing, but shooting guard, small forward. For Baylor this year, one and done, was a top 10 recruit. Big time player.
Yeah.
His like, if I'm going to define him by, like, he's the best athlete in the draft.
Oh, absolutely.
He is freakishly explosive in the half court, certainly in transition. It pops. Like,
yes.
It really pops how athletic he is. Chase down blocks, big dunks, posters, alley-oops, making defensive plays. Like, the athleticism is what you are drafting.
Yeah.
He is going to enter the league as, like, he's not a Men Thompson athletic. He's not Shaden Sharp athletic, but he's like the 5th or 6th best athlete in the NBA next year.
I wrote top 25, and that's extremely conservative.
Yeah, very conservative. Yeah.
He's going to come in and he's going to be crazy. He averaged 15 points, 5.6 rebounds, 3.2 assists, shot 43.6% from the floor, 34% from 3, 78 from the line. It's a lot of tools when you're looking at VJ.
Yeah, super. Definitely. Yeah.
There's a lot of things that fall short, but also I feel like a lot of players you can look at and it's like, okay, they don't really use the tools that they have. VJ does in a lot of ways, but also it can come back to hurt him in a lot of ways. I think that he tends to get sped up on offense. Like he is running all over the floor on defense, and that's good. It ends up in a lot of passing lane steals and stuff like that. But on offense, it's sort of like not to the Russell Westbrook effect, like you see the meme of him being the Mario Kart box item. It's like a little bit toned down of that. What do you think?
He's been able to coast, you can clear, by his athletic gifts that the rest of his game is not developed.
Yeah.
Now, not because he's like a low IQ guy. Sometimes there's like super high athletic guys who are just like, well, I've never had to develop anything else, so I'm just like bad at it and I don't care. That's not it at all. I think like his care factor is through the roof. I love it. I think he really tries hard, hence the defense being as impressive as it is. He's, outside of Cooper, the best two-way player projected to go in the top 5. Like he can certainly offer things. And again, he averaged 15 points as a not very advanced offensive player.
Yeah.
But the handle is very rough.
Very rough.
He like doesn't have an ability to get to his shot from dribbling, which I want to talk about a little bit more coming up here in a moment. But like that's a big step for stars.
Yes.
Is like, can you get to your jump shot while you're dribbling? Like Donovan Mitchell does it at a super high level. VJ does not quite get there, and as a guard, that becomes a lot harder because then you're a stationary spot-up shooter.
Yes.
And if that's your one skill, guys just don't leave you, and then it's like, okay, then you're attacking closeouts, which he's going to have some monster finishes attacking closeouts, but he's not a guy for the most part. He did it a couple of times at Baylor, but he's not a guy for the most part. You could be like, here's the ball at 30 feet, let the clock wind down while you hold the ball, and then when it gets to 8 seconds left, cook him.
Yeah.
He's not going to do that.
No.
He's not doing that right now. If you're betting on it, you're seeing something that he's never shown.
Yes.
Or has very rarely shown, which is a huge gamble. Like drafting guys for things they're not is a dangerous game. Like when you drafted Bryce Sensabaugh, we talked about all these different things that he was. Like his game is super unique. Like no one in the NBA plays that way. And really what it was like what do you edit out of his game? And what do you let remain? It's like, well, as we said, he was a 40% three-point shooter. Fine. Let him stick as a 40% three-point shooter who does a little bit of rebounding, a little bit of passing, and doesn't play any defense.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's who he is.
Yes.
That's great. VJ, if you're projecting he's going to be an all-star because he dribbles and scores, he's never done that.
No.
So you're really asking, if you're drafting him top 5 with that in mind, you're going to be really disappointed.
Yes.
If you are okay, I think, with like maybe the best role player coming out of this top 5, he's got a chance to be really good because in the Big 12, his non-conference shooting was terrible. His end-of-season shooting was terrible. He was lights out shooting the ball in the Big 12.
Yes.
So you're projecting like, okay, he's going to hit his shots. Again, he's just a true nightmare in transition. Like his takeoff points, I've never seen. It's like Clyde Drexler. You look at old Clyde highlights. It's like, oh, he jumped a foot inside the free throw line on his dunks. Like he jumps a legitimate step earlier than everybody else jumps everywhere in every league. Like very rarely LeBron can do it. Like jump from that far out. VJ jumps from 14 feet away from the basket and everyone else gets to 8. It's like another stride. Yeah. It's crazy how explosive he is. But yeah, the star off the dribble stuff is not there.
Yeah, absolutely. He has that Statue of Liberty dunk that he did multiple times this year. He just gets so high up, it's ridiculous. Speaking about the shooting numbers, I have some stats here for you. He shot 36% basically on catch and shoot threes. He shot 47.6% off screen 3-point shots.
Okay.
Which is like, that's elite.
Yeah, it's really good.
And then down here, like you said, beginning of the year, 24 through the first eight games, 26 last 11 games. So there was that weird stretch to start and end the year.
Yeah.
But like the tools are really there. And I think that he has good mechanics. His jump shot looks good.
Yeah, it does.
It's not like he has some weird Lonzo or Michael Gilchrist. I think it could get worked on. And that's the thing that is kind of troubling talking about what he isn't. Because I think he needs to come in and make that 3-point shooting consistent. I feel like that's the first thing he needs to come in and work on to like see the floor and build off of that is his next thing in the NBA, which leaves his handle in the dust, which is what you're saying. If you want him to add that, you're going to be disappointed because I think there's other things that'll be more important for him to work on first.
Right. Exactly right. And, you know, he's going to get on the floor because he plays defense and because I think he's going to hit open threes. I wish they went in a little bit more, but he's going to hit threes and then he's going to destroy closeouts, like we said.
Yes.
The other stuff is just going to be frustrating.
Yes.
And it's why I actually don't think he's a great fit for the Jazz.
I agree.
I look at some of these other guys that are projected in the top 4, and again, we're talking about this top 4 on purpose because if it gets to 5, I think the draft really opens up. And now there's a chance that he falls to 5 or he goes to 3. But if it gets to 5, it's going to be a bunch of different names that are going to be in contention, so we just haven't talked about him a whole lot yet because we need to see the lottery and what happens next week. I get why he's going to go top 4.
Yes.
He has the least star potential of those guys because I think he has the lowest offensive upside. I guess maybe not upside. His upside, if he starts dribbling and creating off the dribble and you know making plays for others and getting to a shot, okay, yeah, he could be an all-star.
Yeah.
He absolutely could get there. But like there's a lot of like Josh Hart there. There's a lot of I don't want to say Alex Caruso. I don't think that's accurate. But like that type of like defensive-minded guard who does a lot of things really well. I think he's absolutely going to be on the floor in the playoffs. Like very confident you can play with him in the postseason, which I don't know if you can say about Ace Bailey. Like there's a chance that Ace fails so badly that he can't do that. But also if Ace hits, I think it's at a higher level or more projectable star level than a VJ Edgecombe does.
Yeah. For my comparison for him, and I like this a lot, I think there are a lot of similarities, is Victor Oladipo.
Okay.
It's like I feel like he might not be as dynamic offensively, and then that will go to like effort and motor on defense. But like I do think he could reach that peak that Oladipo did in Indiana. I feel like that is a similar peak for him, make an all-star game. But I do think he may have a higher floor than some of these other players as well.
So yes, I agree.
Yeah, like the worst case scenario for him. I think he could truly be like a star role player.
Yeah. Like Josh Hart.
Yes.
You know, Josh Hart is so valuable because he's a great defensive player. He's a great rebounder. He does enough passing. He knocks down enough big shots. Not consistently, but knocks down enough big shots that like 29 other teams in the NBA and every other team he has played for, which is New Orleans, which by the way, I think is his best landing spot. But like Portland, all these different places Josh Hart's been, they're like, oh man, wish we had Josh Hart. Every team in the league could be like, oh man, I wish we had VJ Edgecombe.
Yeah.
But it's still one of those things. It's like, again, it goes back to our conversation about Kelly Olynyk and Kyle Filipowski, which is like, right, everyone wishes they had him. Is that the guy you're willing to draft 3rd overall?
Yes.
That's a big question because like Josh Hart has been on 4 teams now.
Yeah.
You know, Kelly Olynyk's been on 7 different teams now. Like, yeah, they're usable. They're really usable, but it may not be like the high upside swing that some guys think. So I don't love his fit for the Jazz, like I mentioned. I think I love him as a fit in Charlotte because they have Lonzo or LaMelo, and they have Brandon Miller. Like they have 2 guys who are offensive go-to engine creator scorers, and VJ doesn't have to be that. There's no pressure for him to be that, and they need defense. Like he would be awesome there. He would be awesome running next to LaMelo in transition. He would be awesome as another athlete with a bunch of long athletes in Charlotte. but a team that, or excuse me, in New Orleans, but a team that already has Zion and already has like CJ McCollum as go-to scorers. He would fit there. For teams that need like a guy to start the gravity, the evolution of everything builds around, I don't think that's what VJ is.
Yes. And I was going to ask you, because I agree that I don't think he would fit very well with the Jazz. Another team I would add is the 76ers, because I don't really know the direction they're going in, but I think he would slide in next to Maxey Will.
Of course, yeah.
Is it just because the Jazz really need a guy? Is that why you're saying he doesn't fit?
Yeah, because yes, I mean, conceptually, Walker at the 5, Taylor Hendricks at the 4, Cody Williams at the 3, VJ Edgecombe at the 2. It's like you have real length and athleticism and defensive potential. Like it all starts to fit. That totally makes sense. Yeah. But the Jazz sacrificing an entire season to get a draft pick and it being a guy who makes sense next to them as opposed to do they make sense next to him is, I think, the wrong question. That's why it's a little bit out of balance. Now, if the Jazz get 4 and draft VJ Edgecombe, like it's a good pick.
Yes.
I do think there actually is a gap between him and the guys I've seen, Con Knipple, Common Malawash, like because the explosiveness, because he accidentally scored 15 points a game, because the 3-point shooting is pretty good. I totally get it. And like the two-way viability is valuable. It's really valuable in today's NBA. And I really believe you got to have those guys to win in the playoffs. He would fit well next to a Bryce Sensabaugh. Yeah. He's just like, you're still looking for the guy if you draft VJ, which means that's what next year becomes about.
And the other thing I like is, like you said, I think it's a fit pick. And it's like, if you're at 4, it is the best available. But like he is a taller, like if the Jazz's best backcourt fully healthy, what would it be? Like Isaiah Collier, Colin Sexton? Like you're adding a defensive-minded, taller guard to that, which I think is a big necessity. And also the Jazz were one of the worst, if not the worst defensive team in the NBA last year. So yeah, I think there are things that make it make sense, but I also agree with you that the Jazz need a guy.
And it's why I think if they were like at 4, they might look at a Trey Johnson, which again, we will not. Well, if the Jazz fall to 4 or 5, we will talk about some of these other guys. Yeah. I did get a sense watching him that like, I think for the Jazz, the top 3 would be clear: Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey. I could be totally wrong, but just based on like high upside focus of the team swings, those 3 guys are a little different than VJ. Yeah. Anyways, any other thoughts?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think we covered him pretty well. And again, if the Jazz end up at 4, we'll really dive into him. If they end up at 1 or 2, I don't think he's in the conversation.
No.
He might be at 3, he might be at 4, and he might be at 5.
Yeah.
But if the Jazz are 1 or 2, I don't think we're going to be talking about him the way we will talk about Dylan Harper. And certainly number 1, there's only one name to talk about, and that's Cooper Flagg. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we will get to a long mailbag. A lot of questions today. Excited for it. Stick around. More Jazz Notes coming up next. Welcome to the Jazz Notes podcast. Ben Anderson, Chandler Holt. All right, it is time for the mailbag. We always wrap up the show with this. It takes up about 90 minutes of the show, so appreciate everyone listening. But it is our favorite part because I like hearing what Jazz fans want to know about and talking about that because sometimes it's not where my mind is. As always, like I mentioned, find us on Twitter at Ben's Hoops. Find Chandler at C Holt Sports. You can do that on Blue Sky as well, where we put out the prompt at about 11 o'clock every Monday. Next week it'll be Tuesday.
Yes.
And then we will answer your questions. All right, let's start with some DMs.
I will say, night of the draft lottery, like we said, a week from today, if the Jazz fall to 3, 4, 5, or even 1 pick, you want to ask about Cooper Flagg, you can ask us questions then. Just send a DM, and we will make sure to add them to the show.
Yeah.
All right. Starting with USU, the right blue.
If the Jazz fall, though, past 1, don't ask about Cooper Flagg. He's not going to be on the board.
USU, the right blue asks, what is one thing the Jazz are trying to get more of on their team? It's definitely not experience with the youth movement, maybe length, speed, skill, or just flat out superstars. Superstars.
That's it. Yeah, Jazz are still missing the talent around which to build.
Yes.
The number 1 guy of which is going to shape the franchise piece. Now, the nice thing is when you find the number 1 guy, it puts the number 2 guy in his place. Yeah. Like, it's easier to find the number 2 than it is the number 1, but like maybe the number 2 is already on the team. In all honesty, there's a chance that's true. You just don't have the number 1 guy who kind of makes that all make sense. Yeah. You know, the way Cade this year, was it year 4 or whatever, kind of evolving into the number 1 guy, made Jalen Duren look so much better. Yeah. Kind of makes those other pieces fit so much better. And then, you know, if Jaden Ivey comes back next year, maybe he's the legit number 2. But the same way Tyrese Halliburton kind of recalibrated everything for everybody in Indiana. It's like, okay, all of a sudden Miles Turner's like a good player, even though he was kind of always the most like, is he good? Does anyone want to give him money? Yeah. And now it's like, yeah, big center who shoots threes and blocks shots. Like we like that guy. So that's what they're looking for. Yeah. Superstars in the mold of an identity setter, which doesn't have to be a point guard. I know I just named Cade and and Tyrese Halliburton, which like that's the Dylan Harper player in this draft, like tall guard who sets the table for everybody else. But it could be like an Ace Bailey who's just like, oh man, big shooter.
Yeah.
Tries to play defense, build around that.
And that's the thing. If the Jazz had that number one guy, you would love VJ in the draft. Like we just talked about.
Right.
Like, but you need that guy. So yeah. And I think if we wanted to pinpoint a skill, I think it would be defense that the Jazz need the most.
They'll certainly take defense the most. Yeah, no problem. No doubt about that.
All right, next from Benji what are the odds of the Grizzlies going after Lowry now that they have made the Finnish coach their new head coach?
I had teased that this was something to keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Lowry shared the announcement on his Instagram page. So, some of the Finnish guys who play for the Utah Hockey Club or maybe the Mammoth said, like, or Lowry had talked to her. He's like, just because we're from the same country doesn't mean we all know each other.
Yeah.
Like, now this is all basketball, so I'm sure Lowry does know him. In fact, he may have coached him at the National League level. I don't know. Sure, it's intriguing. And we mentioned like why Memphis would actually make some sense. Like if they wanted to get off Desmond Bane and some draft picks and add a little bit more size, like Lowry fits really well next to Jaren Jackson Jr. Like that makes a ton of sense to me. So I would keep an eye on it, but I don't think Lowry's going to be like, I have to go play for the Memphis Grizzlies. But it's another interesting point. I mean, I think Lowry becomes a really interesting name in trade talks this year. Mm-hmm. The only reason we didn't talk about him is because he literally couldn't get traded this year. Yeah. But he was the biggest talking point in trades a year ago at this point. A little bit of a down year this year, but you look around the NBA and look at like Houston's shortcoming. They took 18 threes yesterday. Golden State made 18 threes. Like Lowry in a playoff game is going to attempt 8 threes by himself. I know he's never been there, but like even on a team like that, if he's just 7 feet tall and stands in the corners, he's going to get looks. He's going to take shots. Every team wants what Lowry has, even if he had a down year this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, doesn't know where he falls on a contending team. And I think that if you are able to, the Jazz would love to keep him around on a future contending team. But that you don't know if that's possible because at the end of the day, now that he is tradable, Lowry has the most trade value of anyone on the Jazz roster.
Yep.
So, and again, we've talked about the Jazz don't have a plan. Flexibility is their plan. So it just remains to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
From Alex on Blue Sky, we'll do the one from last week first. I love the idea of Ace Bailey, but your description in the pod makes him seem more like a high-level number 2, like Lowry or Durant, rather than number 1. What guys in the draft have that number 1 best player on a contender-type ceiling?
Cooper. Dylan Harper.
Okay.
Dylan Harper really does have it.
Yeah.
He's got we talked about VJ like needing to get to his shot off the dribble. Dylan can get to it. It did not go in a whole lot. That's like his star separator. And if he does that, he will become a star, I think, in the NBA if he can get his shot off and shoot it well.
Yes.
Trey Johnson he's maybe the best shooter off the dribble in the draft. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
He's like shot almost 40% off the dribble on threes. Like that immediately steps in right away and allows you to become a star. Jeremiah Fears is a ball in hand guy. So in that sense, like those guys just have a chance to create a lot of offense for themselves. Ace Bailey really does. Ace Bailey absolutely has a chance to become a 25 point per game scorer and not just as a off the ball, I shoot spot up threes type of guy the way Michael Porter Jr. is. Like that's kind of the downside if his handle never develops, but he absolutely could get there.
I could see Ace Bailey, like not necessarily his cap being a number 2 guy. I could see him being like a co-star. Like
1B.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, not 2.
Yeah.
But like 1A, 1B guy for sure. And some series he's the best player.
Yeah.
And some series he's not. You know, you remember not that long ago it was like Ja 1, Jaren Jackson Jr. 2, Bane 3, and now it's like Jaren Jackson Jr. is 1, and I think Ja is 2.
Yeah.
You could see that same thing happen. And that evolution happened with Ace Bailey throughout his NBA career.
Yeah.
So that's why I think VJ is like a uniquely maybe unappetizing fit for the Jazz where they are in their rebuilding. Very good player. If he gets him, I think you're happy if you're a Jazz fan. But Cooper might be a legit number 1 offensive player. Dylan Harper might be a legit number 1 offensive player. Ace Bailey might be a legit number 1 offensive player. Trey Johnson might be a legit number 1 offensive player. And VJ probably won't be.
Yeah.
So that's just the only difference there.
Next up, another one from Alex this week on Blue Sky. Have you done a lot of draft research yet? Jace Richardson intrigues me, but I wonder how he compares to Keontae Collier in sense of ball.
He's a better shooter than all of them except Sensabaugh. He's not very big. He's listed at 6'3".
Okay.
I did not see that. I watched. I wonder if I watched Rutgers versus Michigan State. That would make sense. It's Big Ten teams. And like he had moments. He had a really good second half. He had like a nothing first half, and he's young, it's just whatever, judging a player based off of a first half. And again, I legitimately haven't done like, let me watch 4 games and all of the breakdowns. I haven't done that at all because he's probably in a window that he doesn't make sense for the Jazz unless they were to trade up. There's a chance he could fall down to 21, I guess, but I kind of get the impression he's right there in that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 range, second half of the lottery, and I don't know if he falls out. But like his dad, super athletic, not as big as his dad certainly, but he's intriguing. He's one of those guys who could like end up being a better player than VJ Edgecombe out of this draft. That's the other thing with VJ, not to get too far away from it, but like that next group of players, which is Trey Johnson, Con, Derek Queen, you can throw Jace, Jeremiah Fears in this, like it's a good bet with one of those guys going to be better than he is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you take the whole group.
Yes.
And you're going to say like, I'm getting 6 guys. Is one of them going to be better than VJ? Yes, probably. If you get Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper, you could take the next 12 guys and put them in a group, and like the odds are not one of them is not going to be better than Dylan or Cooper.
Yeah,
like that's how good they are. That's the gap between the two. Ace, it's like there's a decent chance 6 or 7 guys, one of them will be better than Ace too. So that's why everyone wants to be in the top 2 of this draft, and why the Jazz have a 26 or 27% chance of getting there. You're excited about those opportunities.
But yeah, going back to my previous point about VJ, I think that other than Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper, he has the highest floor of anyone in the draft. So
yeah, I think that's fair. And again, I kind of like Ace's floor. Just his 6'10" guys who shoot are valuable.
True.
It's like there's not a bunch of like whiff here. I actually don't think with the top 4 guys, and maybe even the top 5 if you want to say Trey Johnson's the 5th guy.
Yeah.
I don't even know if Con Knipple has like a huge whiff factor.
True.
So I think there's some relatively safe bets. It's just such a better draft than last year.
Yes.
I really want to stress that. Like it's a way better draft than it was a couple of years ago, or this last year.
All right, now moving over to the X replies. Whit Riley asked, what's the likelihood the Jazz trade the Timberwolves pick?
Low?
I was going to say low.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you usually get like 1 to maybe 3 max draft night trades. 3 is pushing it. And it's like, I'm going to build off of this question by asking you, say the Jazz fall to 4 or 5. Do you think they could maybe, if there's a surprising team that jumps into that top 3, package their picks and maybe something else to move up?
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a team. You're saying the Jazz move up?
Yes.
So if the Jazz are at 5, the scenario is they love Ace Bailey.
Yeah.
The Pelicans are sitting at 4. And whoever's at 3, the Raptors, or let's say something weird, 76ers are at 3.
Yeah.
And they say, oh man, we want Trey Johnson. And the Jazz say, we want Ace Bailey. And they say, we don't want to touch that.
Yeah.
And the Jazz will say, here's 5, 21, and both of the second round draft picks. Can we jump up to 3? Knowing that Trey Johnson's going to be on the board at 5, and the Jazz go up and get Ace Bailey 3, but there's a chance that if Ace was on the board, New Orleans would take him at 4 or whatever. Like, yeah, conceivably. Or maybe the Jazz want to package 21 and their 2 second round picks to move up to 19.
True.
Maybe you move up a pick or 2 there. Or you punt it into the future, but I think there's enough reason to just make that pick at 21 and bring in another young guy to audition and have a chance to make it.
Yeah. I was going to say, I did after I finished my VJ stuff, I did sort of like an entire first round sort of short hits on a lot of players. 20 through 30, there's a lot of interesting players in that range.
Yep.
Like it is crazy the jump from last year's draft to this one.
Yeah.
All right, next up, James McKinney. Any word yet on whether the Jazz will announce workouts leading up to the draft?
They haven't, and they won't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and let me rephrase that. If the Jazz get the number 1 pick, they will make a huge deal out of Cooper coming here.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's going to be a highlight video, and I suspect they would be like, welcome to the facilities. Here's your house. Yeah. I don't think they would hide that.
No.
And maybe even if they get top 2, and be like, look at Dylan Harper. Look at Ace Bailey. Generate some excitement based on that. If it's 5, no chance.
No,
if it's 4 or 3, probably no chance. But like 1 or 2, I wouldn't be surprised if they flex a little bit and they're like, look at how nice this is.
Yeah.
Look at this new toy. Here's the link to season tickets at the end of the video. But if you get Cooper, so that's what's so weird. The Jazz have never been in this situation, and it actually doesn't happen that often where like it's an obvious number 1 pick.
Yeah.
If the Jazz win the lottery, it will be like the Wemby draft where like immediately ESPN was like, so what do you think about going to the Spurs?
Yes.
Like that's what it'll be. If Cooper's there, whoever wins the lottery, everyone's going to go over to Cooper and be like, are you excited to be a member of the Jazz or whatever? So that won't be that big of that won't be a secret at all. And it won't even be Jazz don't even have to pretend the game is that they're not going to take him number 1 overall. They're going to tell you immediately. We're going to know it. Maybe the Jazz don't, but like the league is going to know.
Yeah.
So,
all right, next up, Jimbo Slice. complete opposite of what we were just talking about. When the Jazz get the 5th pick in the lottery next week, what's something positive to think about or look forward to? Could Trey Johnson become Klay Thompson, or could we hire an amazing assistant coach so we don't have to watch abysmal defense anymore?
Well, Trey Johnson's going to make you the worst defensive team in the league. Like, he's awful. So that stinks. It's where, like, VJ might be more exciting for some guys. Yeah, Trey Johnson might be the leading scorer of rookies next year. Big might. But he's a crazy scorer. I mean, he's just a crazy three-point shooter. He's really going to be explosive. So, yeah, that's what you're excited about, like Trey Johnson becoming a star. And look, guys at 5 become all-stars. And Trey Johnson has all-star potential, absolutely. What he averaged, 19 or 20 points a game? I'd have to look up what he averaged. Again, I haven't done like a deep dive. I've watched 2 of his games already, and I'm kind of just keeping it in the back pocket. So if I have to talk about it a week from today after the lottery, I can speak on him somewhat clearly. But you hope he's like a bigger Donovan Mitchell. Like, he's not that explosive by any means, but he has a chance to be a true like go-to scorer on a good team. He's got that type of ability. You think of, Cam Thomas in not New Jersey, Brooklyn, kind of that guy. Not quite as wild, and maybe a little bit better defensive player than Cam was at LSU, but has a chance to be a real like go-to offensive guy.
And something I'll say, both of the past 2 years, the Jazz still didn't make the playoffs. Right? Sure, they had considerably better records, and there was some more fun nights at Delta Center. But they still didn't make the playoffs. They still didn't have that high ceiling, didn't have that hope of doing something. And just ignoring what they've become and just looking at the pick, like, even if you're at 5, whoever you're drafting, like, will be more exciting than drafting Cody Williams at 9, drafting Taylor Hendricks. Like,
whoever the Jazz draft at 5 is their best prospect.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
So I think that is something to look forward to. Watch the highlight tapes after the Jazz get the whatever pick they do in the draft lottery or whoever they draft on draft night.
5th, Jimbo. You're probably right, but yeah.
But yeah, no, I think whoever they get will be the most exciting prospect.
Let me pull up the 5th pick really quick. Historically, let's see if I'm actually logged in here on StatHead. That'll make it easier. Okay, I am. Okay, so I'll give you the best of the best.
Okay.
Kevin Garnett, Sir Charles Barkley, Ray Allen, Vince Carter. Vince belongs lower on this list. This is just total win shares, but that accounts for your career. Scottie Pippen, Dwayne Wade, Walt Frazier, Kevin Love. Like, good. It drops off relatively quickly. You're like, you get to Jonas Valanciunas disturbingly quickly.
Yeah. But what? That was like 5 to 8 Hall of Famers?
Garnett, Barkley, Ray Allen, Vince, Pippen, Wade, Frazier.
Yeah.
All Hall of Famers. Kevin Love's a Hall of Famer too. Yeah. But not the type of Hall of Famer you're like geared up for. But really good player. Sidney Moncrief, like another Hall of Famer. And then you get Mitch Richmond, actually a Hall of Famer as well. So that's what you're hoping for. You hope that, that guy drops to you. You're not as in love with Jeff Green, who's like an okay player. Juwan Howard, Mike Miller, who won Rookie of the Year. De'Aaron Fox. Like, there's some players. There are guys who have had very good careers. There are a lot of Dante Exums and Chris Dunns and Isaac Okoros and Jaden Ivies, who, he's been hurt. But, there's also a lot of those guys. You got to be prepared that that's a very realistic possibility at 5. But there have been some guys who they didn't realize that Chuck was going to be the best player or that Kevin Garnett, that was different. That was high school gambles and stuff like that. Yeah. But you just didn't know that those guys were going to be the stars they turned out to be, but some of them did.
And at the same time, this is every pick. Like, you have LeBron James and you have Michael Olowokandi.
Yeah.
So
right. You get Zachary Riza-Shea or you get Wemby.
Yeah.
Both number 1 picks. Not equal players in the slightest.
But no, I think that they're still, going back to Jimbo's question, no matter where the Jazz fall, no matter who they get, there is at least something to be excited for. Of course, if it's higher, you are more excited and have more hope. But yeah.
And is their most complete prospect?
Yes.
Is their best prospect? Yeah. That they're bringing in, for sure.
Next up, from Tyler Galt. It's understandable that we've forgotten about Taylor Hendricks, but do you think he will have a role this coming season? And if so, how does he affect the rest of the rotation? Could you compare Taylor's role if we do get flagged or not? And maybe if it affects Lowry's future too?
I don't think it affects Lowry's future. Like Taylor's by itself does not.
Yeah.
Not next year at the very least. Again, I expect his first 4 months just to be like, can you play 15 minutes? Are you comfortable? Are you not going to hurt your other leg because you're favoring it?
Yeah.
All those things. Is everything on, like, you probably just give him some nights off. You know what
True.
I mean? Like, you probably don't play him on the second night of back-to-back coming off of that injury, and the Jazz aren't in any place where they need to win. So, getting Cooper in this scenario matters more about Lowry's future than whatever Taylor does.
Yes.
So, no, I think his role is almost like a rookie season again. It's just like, let's figure it all out again. Let's just get you back to being comfortable being on the court. And then in year 4, which again, it's why this injury stinks so bad. Like, it's probably a 2-year process because you miss a year and then the whole next year is just about like getting comfortable again.
Yeah.
And then you're starting over ideally where you were supposed to be this year, 2 years from now.
Yeah.
So that's what stinks. So I don't think it really impacts what Lowry's role is, but he's got a role on the team in the sense that I think he's going to play a lot still.
Also, in concept, just of what we have seen of Taylor and what we thought he could project to be, I think he would fit really well alongside Cooper Flagg. Like,
Yeah, perfectly.
yeah, like a stretch 4, basically, big body. So
Big guys who play defense and shoot threes fit.
yeah,
That's it's why I think Ace Bailey's ceiling is a lot higher than people think. Like, he's not a great defensive player, but he does know that he's 6'10". He seems to like being 6'10". Some guys want to be 6'3" that are 6'10".
yeah,
He likes blocking shots. He gets steals. He uses his arms. He gets into a stance. He's not a great defensive player. Like we said, he's misread a lot.
yeah.
But like, okay, if Taylor's guarding 4s and Walker's guarding 5s, Taylor's guarding some 3s, Ace is guarding some 3s, like, fine. There's some like switchability stuff there that I think is actually really intriguing.
Next up from Benjamin Smith, he also asks about the Grizzlies and Lowry, but I'm gonna ask the second part of his question here. What would a deal look like for Lowry going to Memphis?
If the Jazz were like, whoa, got VJ Edgecombe, they could be like, hey, actually, Jaw's interesting. And I wouldn't be surprised if Memphis was like, getting rid of Jaw is interesting. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But Danny was not, Danny was rumored to be interested in Kyrie and looked at ended up being a really good trade for Dallas, and Kyrie would have been great here with the Jazz. So Danny may like some of these guys that other teams are like, oof, this is a bad time to buy. And Danny's like, blood on the ground. Like, this is when I'm buying property.
Yeah.
Like, Danny's made a career of doing that. Danny has a lot of success taking advantage of other people's mistakes or desperation. Like, so that it could be Ja, it could be Desmond, like it could be that in a young player.
Yeah.
Lowry, it's important to not, just because you watch him and you're kind of underwhelmed by him this year after being so excited about him his first 2 years, to realize that the rest of the NBA doesn't feel that way. Like, the rest of the NBA, like Kyle Kuzma got traded this year. Like, teams like huge players, and they like huge players who they can conceive of playing a specific role that they need. I remember it's like a mistake I made of being like, Kristaps Porzingis for Marcus Smart? Like, Marcus Smart's the heart and soul of the Celtics. And the Celtics were like, he's 7'4" and he shoots 40% from 3. Are you a moron? I talked to an NBA coach about it, and they were like, that's the best trade. Like, that's a crazy trade. The skill of having a 7-footer who shoots 10 threes a game and shoots 40% is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So the Grizzlies would be like, well, Desmond Bane is 6'4" and shoots 40% on threes. And you want to give us a 7-footer? Who does that? Like, I think they'd take him,
Yeah.
So it could be something like that. Again, I'm not totally on what the Grizzlies think about everybody. The Grizzlies are, from my understanding of their fans on Twitter, like, are not thrilled about what Desmond Bane has become. So yeah, I don't know, like, if you have to throw something in and get that deal done. I would also look at Jalen Green. I've mentioned the Rockets a lot. Jalen Green's current value is the lowest it's been in 18 months. Like, it was pretty low after his first 2 years in the league.
Sure.
Remember last year, he like took off. Second half of the season, he was cooking. He was averaging 30 points a game for like a 20-game stretch. And it was like, this dude's broken out. Can't believe the Nets didn't trade for him. Can't believe Portland didn't trade for him. What a huge mistake. You had a chance to get that guy. And then he fell back this year. He might be a little bit of a victim of there just too many young players on that team.
True.
And that was his first playoff appearance, and you're going up against the Warriors, and you're like, oh, you suck. I don't know, man. He's playing against the Warriors. Like, it's pretty hard. He's never done this before, and you're asking a 23-year-old to be the offensive engine, again, not to overuse a term, and the thing he's never done before. And Danny Ainge is like, man, 8 months ago, everyone was killing to get that guy.
Yeah.
And now he's available because he had a bad series. You can get him plus assets, maybe, for Lowry. That seems interesting.
Yeah.
Again, I'm speculating.
Yes.
Don't aggregate that. But I'm just thinking, like, just how Danny Ainge has made a killing, and how, like, if you want to replicate what the Thunder did to get Shea, it's like they didn't buy low on Shea by any means. I think he was only a year in the NBA and actually had a good playoff series. But you're taking a guy who's early in his career, who hasn't gotten close to reaching his potential. You're putting him in a different spot, and then you're building around him. Like that unlocks guys. Yeah. That's your chance to unlock somebody. And Jalen Green was a number 2 overall pick and has elite athleticism and has some shooting chops. So I think that's possible.
Yes, absolutely. And I kind of like the idea of him in Houston. Like I feel
Lowry?
like
Oh yeah.
I feel like Lowry would be best with a defensive-minded center, and Al P isn't really that. But you have Jabari Smith and Amen Thompson next to him. I think that's very interesting.
Unless you get Jabari Smith back, which might be the case. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. You might get a number 2 pick in Jalen Green, and then like another number 3 pick in Jabari. Like that might be the type of trade you're trying to make if you're the Jazz.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, yeah, you're getting a bunch of young talent that you hope in 2 years was misdeveloped, which, by the way, look at the coaching history in Houston before Ime Udoka. Like, it just might have been a little messy. It might have been a little bit too much turnover.
Yeah. All right, a couple more from Whit Riley. He says, I'm admittedly a conspiracy theorist, shamefully. Any chance you guys believe the lottery is rigged?
If there was something you wanted to rig in all of sports that would change the outcome the most, rigging the NBA lottery makes the most sense.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I've talked to Sarah Todd, who has been in the room for the lottery. It's like impossible to rig.
Okay.
Do I believe I do think the Patrick Ewing thing was rigged.
Oh yeah.
I kind of that belief that like the NBA in the 80s, like it was taken off, but it was like Jordan was kind of coming up still, and Larry and Magic was kind of, but there was like the league was in a pretty controversial spot. I don't want to get into all the politics of why the league was in a controversial spot, but like and New York as a town wasn't in a good place. Like, you know, it was pre-Rudy Giuliani coming in and cleaning things up, not to get political about it at all, but like adding a star from Georgetown in New York where they needed that exact thing was like a perfect fit.
Yeah.
And it was a 1 in 14 chance because they were just doing the envelope right. It's like, yeah, you fold the edge or you freeze the envelope, which is the theory.
Which one?
Do both. Yeah, right. Why leave it up to chance? Yeah. You banged it, putting it into the freezer, and that's why the edge was folded. So if there is one thing you could fix in the world and rig to make sports more exciting, the NBA lottery makes the most sense. But like literally the process, there's 14 representatives from the teams. There's a bunch of media members. It is just balls in a thing coming out.
Yeah.
Like in a big hopper, and it comes out and it has like up to 14 on it. And then the next one has up to 14 on it. The next one has up to 14. Next one has up to 14. You draw 4 balls. I think they're numbered 1 through 14, and teams are assigned the codes.
Combinations.
Yeah, the combinations there. So
it is kind of funny because LeBron went on the Pat McAfee show whenever he did like a month ago at this point, and he hinted towards him going to Cleveland, Derrick Rose going to Chicago. I don't know if he said, I know he said those 2 for sure. I don't want to say he said anything else, but he hinted towards it being rigged. He didn't say that, but he was like, that's weird.
Anthony Davis going to New Orleans right after they after the league took them over.
I was about to say when they were the owners.
And then they have to trade Anthony Davis and they win Zion the next year.
Yep.
LeBron leaving Cleveland and then winning back-to-back first-round picks
I
or
think
whatever.
3 out of 4.
Was it 3
after
out of 4?
LeBron left, yeah.
Yeah, because they got Kyrie, and then they got
Anthony Bennett.
Oh, jeez. And they also got
Andrew Wiggins
and traded Wiggins. So, like, yeah, if you wanted to say, like, it's the most suspicious, it certainly is the most suspicious, but I think it's hard to rig.
True, very hard to rig. All right, another one from Whit Riley. Do you guys see something in Collier's shooting mechanics that give you hope for the future, or is it broken? I don't think that he has, like, the MGK Michael Kidd because like it's not broken.
No. And again, it's just like not what I'm watching a whole lot of.
Yeah.
A lot of it, like Will Hardy, I asked him a lot about shot mechanics this year, and Will is even like, it's not my thing. We've got other guys. Like Will knows, but he talks so much about guys' feet this year, way more than I'm watching. He's just like getting the base right, so you're shooting kind of the correct and repeatable way every single time is a lot different than like kind of what you're looking at. I think a lot of people are looking like Cody kind of has a weird wind up. And like Taylor Hendricks, when he got into the NBA, started it, I called it I think I've talked about it, like unbuckling his seatbelt. Like he started on one side and lifted it up and then shot. And has got more fluid. You could tell by the end. So it's like, you know, there's a lot there. There's a lot of things in that sense.
And also if you can fix Lonzo Ball's jump shot, I think that it's hard to have a truly broken jump shot.
Yeah, there's not a lot of evidence that like a ton of guys get better at shooting, but with shooting being the most important skill in the NBA now, for the first time in my lifetime, that's like the best thing you can do. Guys work on it a lot differently. There's a lot more focus, a lot more rides on it. And if that's your way to stick in the NBA and that's the reward is you get to stick, guys figure out how to get it done.
Yeah.
So
next question from Chilipowski. With the Delta Center construction, where will the Salt Lake Summer League be?
The Jazz have not announced the Summer League. every year in the past, they have said April. April is when they have announced it.
Yeah.
It is now May, and they have not announced it. So I guess there's a chance it won't. I've said this several times. Justin Zanuck has alluded to our summer league a couple of times.
Okay.
And if they do it, it will be up at the University of Utah.
Okay.
I do believe they're going to do it. I do believe if they do it, it will be up at the U.
Okay.
I guess you could do it at the Maverick Center, which is where the G League team played, where the Stars played. So that's conceivable, but my belief would be if they do it, and I think they are, it would be up at the U.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But that's where they did it in 2017. The last time they were doing all summer renovations on the arena.
Okay. Next up from Cam Young. Feel like the Jazz are missing a dog mentality on the team currently, someone who can pick up full court, dive for loose balls, start fights, etc. Who are some dogs in the draft, especially in the pick 21 range?
Pick 21 range gets a little bit more interesting, like a Rasheer Fleming.
Okay.
Again, I need to watch some of these guys. Some of this is just like what I've read through and kind of loosely looked at those picks. I will do that again as soon as we wrap up the lottery a week from now. But that's kind of the guy I'm looking at there.
Okay.
Nick Clifford, I like a lot, just as far as like the mentality of being a winner is certainly there. And he was able to carry Colorado State through a bad start in the Mountain West Conference to the NCAA tournament. So some stuff there. I have not watched the European players at all. I will. I'll look at them certainly. But that's kind of who I'm thinking of. If you're thinking of like that like wing defender, Rasheer Fleming is kind of the name I would circle. And yeah, at some point the Jazz probably need to start focusing on that. Yeah. Kind of figuring out like if that's going to be something that's going to be a part of their identity. The nice thing is like you look at the history of like guys like Ryan Dunn. We mentioned Josh Hart. Like the Jazz drafted Josh Hart, which is a tough one. Yeah. They're like those guys are available 20 to 30. It's like for some reason we really underrate those guys in the draft.
I'm going to combine two questions here. Okay. One from the Great Bambus and another one from TJ Jones. Okay. TJ says, does it make sense for the Jazz to take on Lillard for a pick and send them any vets outside of Lowry they decide for salary purposes? And then the Great Bambus asks, do you think a Dame or a Giannis trade would make more sense for the Jazz?
A Giannis trade makes more sense because Giannis is a great player. Yeah. And Dame is at the end of his rope, unfortunately. Yeah. He's going to miss all of next year and we'll come back and we'll see what he's able to do. At that point, you might as well just let him expire and then try and get him on the cheap at the end of his contract. If he's just like, oh man, Cooper's figuring it out. The Jazz have added another star, and I want to chase a ring in a place I've always talked about being willing to live and play, coming back to Utah, and I'm like the missing piece point guard who they're not paying a whole lot of. Yeah. Like, that actually makes a lot of sense. I think you would just wait on him. If you have a chance to get Giannis, you throw everything at it, minus the number 1 overall pick if you get it. Yeah. And maybe number 2, but even then at number 2, you might be worth trading for Giannis. True. Probably is. Yeah. So in that sense, yes. What was the other aspect of the question? Oh, does it make sense to do the 3 expiring veterans for a pick? Yeah, it might. Yeah. You're taking back then Dame for a year of not playing. If you're going to take next year, that makes total sense, right? Yes. It's a really easy way to lose games, as opposed to being like, well, sorry, John Collins, you're playing 35 games this year, and sorry, Colin Sexton, you're playing 40 games this year. Jordan, you're just not playing or whatever. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And if you could get another unprotected future first-round pick, or I think they might be able to trade 2 as soon as draft night, whatever it is. I don't know exactly what they've just traded so many draft picks. But it's like, that's how you take advantage of teams. Like, and it's far in the future, but ideally at that point, you've got a star. You would be going towards the end of the second contract of Cooper Flagg or Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, if they work out. And they're about to sign their supermax, their big deal if they're the Stars. And then you have an unprotected pick from Phoenix and you have an unprotected pick from Milwaukee. That's how you game the system. Yes. Where it's like, okay, now you're still winning lottery picks and you have a star in his prime and you find a way to stay cheap around him. That's kind of the advantage of that. And you know what? If that's what you get out of John Collins and Jordan Clarkson and Colin Sexton at this point, like if you were to just put them on the market, like Jordan Clarkson, you might get a second round pick for. Yeah. Maybe. Looking at John Collins, like maybe a bad first, maybe a bad late first. Colin Sexton, maybe a middle tier first. So yeah, if that's what you're going to get on the market now, like a sooner first, the Jazz don't need more firsts in the next couple of years. They've got so many. Yeah, you probably just say, well, what's the highest upside draft pick you can get? Yeah. And then you just take one of those. I guess conceivably, yes. Yeah. To put it simply for the Great Bambus's question, Dame trade or Giannis trade making more sense. I feel like if the Jazz are
sticking on their current path, a Dame trade makes more sense because you probably throw at least one of the 3 expiring veterans and get him back and he won't play next year. You can tank again and go for one of the top guys next year. But if you're jumping ship on your current plan, which is, again, the Jazz have talked about flexibility, and you want to win a title, the Giannis trade makes a lot more sense.
If you were to get the number 1 pick and you were like, okay, well, you're willing to give up Lowry and your other future draft picks for Giannis, and you're going to pair those together, and you think that Giannis's future is actually 6 years and not 3 years. He's only in his early 30s. He's 31 or whatever. Yeah. It's like, you think he's still going to be elite at 35. Well, that's when Cooper Flagg should be elite also. Yeah. Okay, great. Or if you want Dylan Harper, you say, I know Dylan Harper's going to be a number 2. Giannis is a number 1. Great. Pair that together and then build around it. I guess that's conceivable. Yeah. And then you trade Lowry and whatever other picks you have to get there.
True. All right. Last question from Derek Nem. What are some examples over the years of players you were higher and lower on than the consensus? Has it changed how you evaluate draft prospects?
The hard thing, and this is important to talk about with like VJ. I'm trying to think of guys I was like really high on. In fact, I like always think I should make a list every year of like guys I love and guys I don't love, so I can go back and reference it specifically for this question. It's really easy in retrospect to be like, oh, I kind of liked him in the draft, and then 3 years later he's really good. You're like, yeah, I liked him. Yeah, I knew I liked him. And then it's like you were actually erasing history. Actually, one guy I will tell you I really liked and I remember really liking is Tyrese Maxey. Okay. I remember watching him at Kentucky, and it's like the Kentucky guard thing, which is guards from Kentucky were always better in the NBA than they were in Coach Calipari's system. But one of the reasons why Tyrese Maxey fell, I could pull it up, but I think he shot like 29% from 3. But if you watched him, it was like, oh man, he had to take a lot of really tough shots. And that won't be the case in the NBA. And if he gets the right landing spot where he doesn't have to take a lot of tough shots, it's going to click a lot sooner and he's going to shoot better. Yeah, he shot 29% from 3. I'm not lying about it. Like, I remember watching him a lot. And thinking like, man, even though the Jazz have Jordan Clarkson and Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley, like Tyrese Maxey is the type of guy they should invest in going forward. I was right about that one. I've been wrong on guys for sure. And like some of the guys like are probably out of the league and I've forgotten them. Like the truth is like I scout these guys, I work hard, I ride it up. And then like if they don't end up on the Jazz and they're on a bad team that I'm going to watch 3 times this year and they don't play, I'm like, whatever. Yeah. I don't care at all. I will tell you, okay, one of the guys I really liked last year, and I'm steadfast to it, Kyle Filipowski.
I was going to mention that.
Just don't forget like what the league wants, which is big guys and shooting. So it's why like I'm like pretty high on Ace Bailey. It's like because the worst case scenario, he's a big guy who shoots. Yeah. The little guys, a la VJ Edgecombe. If you are asking guys to do something they have not shown that they do, you're probably going to hurt yourself. Yeah. Now, that's also how you find the absolute, I can't believe he figured that out. Guys, you know what I mean? Like, wow, what a star. This really worked out well. He added something to his game that was the one thing he needed. The one swing skill that he brought in unlocked everything. That's cool. It's really hard to find that. True. It's really hard to know what that is in guys. So
I would say a good example of that is Kawhi. Like he came in as
exactly right.
And then he added the jump shot. The Spurs fixed his jump shot, I want to say like pretty fast. And then he was the Kawhi that we all know.
Yeah, exactly right. That's, it falls to 15. Yeah. So you can't ignore the fact that guys add things. Yes. Because it is a part of it. It's probably better to get those guys in the late lottery a la Kawhi. Yeah. Or, Kawhi is just a good example of it. Than it is to be like, well, at 4, I think I'm going to change something specific in his game. Some guys, it's actually about editing. Yes. Taking stuff out. Bryce Sensabaugh is a good example of that. The other thing to keep an eye on, sometimes we overrate some guys' IQs and underrate some guys' IQs. Yeah. I won't get into the whole thing of it, but like I think there's a real reason we looked at the volatility of Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green as being like, oh, they're kind of explosive. Like they have explosive personalities. That's kind of hard to deal with. So we're going to let Jimmy go 30 and we're going to go Draymond Green in the second round. It's like you're overlooking that they have the 2 highest, like those are 2 of the probably 10 highest IQ basketball players in the NBA right now and were in college as well. Yeah. And like you let them slip because like they were a little like feisty. It's like feistiness is good. I get Draymond gets too many texts. I get that Jimmy was just a huge headache for Miami. It's like, but Jimmy's a Hall of Famer and so is Draymond.
And adding on to that, like, we're getting questions about the Jazz need to add that kind of player.
Yeah, exactly right. So, and I don't know like who those guys are in the draft. I honestly just have not watched. But like sometimes I think we're like, oh, that's too big of a headache. And I'm just like, sorry, your job is to deal with headaches sometimes. Like you're trying to win basketball games. And Draymond and Jimmy both did that.
Yes.
So sometimes I think those cloud people's visions of what players are.
Yeah.
But if you're like, he really needs to add this one skill, but then it's there. It's actually why I'm like kind of steadfast still on Cody. I think he just needs to add weight.
Yeah.
And if he adds weight, he might be really good. And it might be that simple.
I was going to say, I agree with you. I think that I am not as low on Cody as other people. And I think that maybe not adding weight is the answer, but I think that once he adds weight, then he can like actually address these things that he needs to address. And it'll all come together better.
Yep.
All right. Is that it?
Yeah. So that's the thing I would say. If like you're betting on body stuff and like that's what needs to unlock, I actually kind of like that.
Yeah.
I remember a bunch of people were like, Grady Dick. No, I'm like, because he gets the ball stripped at Kansas. It's like, well, he's going to get stronger.
Yeah.
They make you eat perfect food all the time. So yeah, you would be just fine.
Yeah.
So anyways.
All right.
That's what I'd bet on.
I think that's it for today. Like Ben said, next week we're going to be back on Tuesday, not Monday, our regular day. We're going to do a full recap. However, if you want to see our coverage, it'll be on KSLSports.com.
Yep.
We will have an article as soon as possible once the pick is announced. And then we will come back, talk about the pick, talk about the other stuff that happened in the lottery, and also what players we think will be in the range wherever the Jazz are.
So yeah, Monday, live reaction on 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone as it happens. I'll be on the broadcast. Tuesday, normal time, we'll record and answer all your questions.
Yeah.
All right, stick around. More Jazz Notes coming back next week.